Hello, and welcome to Culture in Between, a podcast about the unique experiences of growing up in a culture that is different from your parents' culture. I'm Brianna.
And I'm Alyssa, and we are the American-born daughters of two Jamaican immigrants. Thank you guys for joining us for this inaugural episode. We are super excited to be doing this. Brianna and I have been talking about starting a podcast for probably over a year now, so the fact that we're actually making it happen is really exciting. In case you guys ever need to know the difference between who's Brianna and who's Alyssa, I'm Alyssa talking right now. I have the sultry, smooth alto voice, and my sister has the soprano voice, and she's literally like a professional soprano.
Yeah, I am actually. And we will talk about that a little bit more in a little bit when we introduce ourselves. But yes, I am a professional opera singer, which I'm not like a big time opera singer. You're not going to find my Wikipedia page or anything, but I do sing opera and I am a soprano, and Alyssa and I could not have more different voices for sure, but we are really excited to be here and to do this podcast. So how about we start off by introducing ourselves, what we're about.
Figure out who the heck we are. Because right now you're like, okay, Alyssa and Brianna, that's great. But who are we? So, I don't know. You want to go first, Bri?
Sure, I guess I will go first. So, as I said before, I am a professional singer, but as a professional singer, you always need to have a side job as well. So, I also actually teach English as a second language too. But those are just my day jobs. I also am someone who just loves learning about different cultures. And I literally read books about cultures and immigrant experiences. I love to travel. Just everything about culture is just so important to me. It's just a passion of mine. And that's why I'm so excited to do this podcast, why I kind of came up with the idea for this podcast that Alyssa was not initially fully supportive of, but we don't have to get into that. We maybe talk about that a little bit later.
To defend myself, I was supportive of the idea. It's just, so you didn't let me explain who I am. So
right,
let me
go
ahead
and
explain.
Introduce yourself now.
I'm a software developer by trade. I'm a professional nerd. I write code for a living. I have my degree in computer science. And so initially when Brandon and I were talking about, creating a podcast, I was like, okay, well, what do we talk about? Well, naturally, my first instinct was to do a podcast on web development or technology, because that's what I know. But Brianna's not in the tech field, so we had to find a happy medium. And as Brianna noted, she's very passionate about culture and all that. And we found that we organically, as Jamaican American kids, we naturally have these conversations just with each other about, wasn't it funny when mom did this or dad said this, and yada, yada, yada. And then so, the idea kind of came to be that okay, maybe we can talk about, the experiences of people who, live in a culture that's outside their parents, because it's just something that Brianna and I talk about just all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And another major inspiration for me, at least, when coming up with this idea was actually a few SNL skits, funnily enough. So maybe some of you out there listening have seen these skits. They've become pretty popular.
We'll include them in the show notes if you haven't.
Yeah. And I think I actually saw the other day that one of them is one of the 5 most watched SNL skits recently. But anyway, so the first skit was one with somewhere from Africa. These 2 parents that were clearly African, of some African origin, and their child who wanted to be an artist and had actually, I think, changed his major to an art major in school, or to be a writer, I think, actually. I apologize. It was to be a writer. But he was, afraid to tell his parents that he was doing that. And his parents were kind of bragging about how proud they were of him. And then he kind of drops that bomb that he's chosen to become a writer, and the disappointment and the hilarity that ensues with them kind of joking about the value of a writer is funny and really relatable, I think, to anyone with immigrant parents, because as I'm sure you'll notice through the stories that we tell with this podcast, immigrant parents are generally not supportive of anything that they perceive as not being a lucrative job. So I think for a lot of people, it was a really relatable. There we go, words. A really relatable skit. I know it was for me and for Alyssa. And I remember reading the YouTube comments on the video, and there were tons of other people who, said that they also had immigrant parents and that they completely related to that skit and how funny it was. So the other skit that I also kind of got some inspiration from, which is more recent, this one apparently, I think I saw it on like a list or something of like some of the highest viewed skits recently. I don't know if it's like in history, but recently. And this one included Pedro Pascal, if you know him, the actor Pedro Pascal, and he played a Hispanic mother in her muumuu. And, her son comes home with his girlfriend from college, and the mother just kind of like berates him for all kinds of things and kind of interrogates the girlfriend. And it's just, again, very funny and very relatable as a child of immigrants. So both of those skits I found kind of inspiring, and the reaction to them very inspiring. And I actually talked about those skits with some of my friends who also have immigrant parents. So yeah, I that was really an inspiration for me, and I've just realized how much we can maybe talk about the universality of that experience of growing up with immigrant parents and how funny it can be too sometimes. And yeah, so I have SNL to thank a little bit for this podcast idea.
Yeah, we'll include some videos in the show notes so guys can go check it out yourself. And yeah, like, Brianna and I were able to get a good laugh out of it, even though, the cultures being represented were different from, our own. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think seeing all those comments, like I said, under that YouTube video made me really realize how unifying this whole like idea of having immigrant parents can be. And I feel like it's actually something that we maybe don't talk about enough as a society. I feel like obviously everyone says how America is a country of immigrants, built by immigrants. There's Hamilton and all this, this song we all know, immigrants get the job done, all of that. So we talk about it a lot, but I feel like we don't really fully relate to one another as immigrants. I think everyone's kind of in their like enclave sometimes. And so this podcast is meant to be a way to kind of find the universality in that experience, because I think there's a lot of universality in that experience.
Should we kind of talk next about like kind of what the structure would be, or we want to give you guys also a little bit of background and kind of us culturally, so you can kind of get to understand us. But I don't know, which way do you think?
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit of our background first, I think. A little bit of our like family history, and then we'll maybe talk a little bit about the structure. So do you want to kind of introduce our parents and what it's like to have Jamaican parents?
Jamaican parents are crazy, or at least ours are. Just kidding. When they get together, they can get very loud. The decibels, I think it goes up like 10 decibels when they get into a room. But the food is awesome. So we are daughters of two loving parents, Webby and Juliet. So if you hear us talk about them throughout the show, Webby and Juliet are our parents.
Juliet might make an appearance in a later
Juliet
episode.
Is very excited to make an appearance. We're not sure about that, but we will. She's funny though.
We're not
she's
sure if we want that, but we'll see.
She's funny. But yeah, our parents grew up, humble beginnings. My dad, both like we mentioned in the kind of the intro, our parents are both from Jamaica. My dad's from Capital, which is Kingston, and my mom is from more the countryside, which is in Mandeville. And so they both migrated over to the States, and I think in like their mid-20s or so. They actually did not know each other before they moved over to the States, so they met in America. And then settled in Miami. And so we grew up, not only having these Jamaican parents, but also grew up in Miami, which is a melting pot of its own. And so we grew up around a lot of other cultures, I don't know about you, Brie, but at least when I was in school, like pretty much, I would say like 80% of the kids, somebody's parent was probably from a different country. So we have been like engulfed in this our whole lives, pretty much.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, pretty much the overwhelming majority of every school that I went to, People had immigrant parents, if not immigrant parents, immigrant grandparents.
Yep.
Yeah, everyone is from somewhere else in Miami, which is really interesting and made for a really fascinating upbringing, really. And it also felt very comfortable having that background ourselves, knowing that a lot of our friends were having the same experience. So
Yeah, like we were able to like you could go get Cuban food, 20 minutes down the road, or go get
people
Jamaican,
did, yeah.
and go get Jamaican cuisine. Like I go get my Jamaican patties and my oxtail and all these and it's just like, and the people in the store are like talking to you, they have the accents and everything. I'm not going to do the accent because I'll do a poor job. I may accidentally slip into it at some point, I'm sure, doing one of these episodes, but I don't want people laughing at me. So, but yeah, like, you have, Miami's obviously a very big Spanish speaking city. So like, just surrounded by culture and music and lots of just different things. So we just, even though we are obviously can talk best about our Jamaican culture, we feel pretty equipped to kind of have these conversations because we've just been around.
Yeah. I think that's such an interesting experience, not only having Jamaican parents, but having mixed race Jamaican parents, which I don't think when people think of Jamaica, they think of how mixed a lot of Jamaicans really are. It's, because of colonialism and the aftermath of the slave trade and all of that. There's such a melting pot in Jamaica in particular, and throughout the Caribbean, really. So we are the product of that, and I think that's been really interesting to experience growing up.
Our mother is Chinese Jamaican, actually, which a lot of people don't know. Chinese Jamaicans exist, but yeah, my great-grandfather was full Chinese. He came over as I think from Jamaica as an indentured servant, I believe is what Mom said. Yeah, I need to get more of the story there, but our parents are mix up, as my mom likes to say, which means we're just mixed with a whole bunch of different things. It's really cool. It's cool to look back at the lineage and see.
But yeah, that's a little bit of our family history. I'm sure we will be doling out anecdotes as we go along in this podcast, because there are just so many funny moments that come with having, especially Jamaican parents.
They're a little tough on you, but
they're tough on you, but they are sometimes unintentionally hilarious. Yeah, and they don't even realize how
they're
hilarious
very blunt. Like
they are. Yeah,
which there's a novelty to that, where like you know where you stand. If they tell you something, they're not sugarcoating. So we sort of have thick skin.
I know.
I don't know.
It both gives you thick skin and thin skin at the same
'cause you're, like,
time. It
overly
like
sensitive.
ruins your
It's a thing.
self-esteem, but also you're
save
like,
that.
oh, I'm used to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, one anecdote I will say is that, pretty much the first thing any Jamaican parent will say to you when you've come back after not seeing them for a long time is, oh, you've gotten fatter. Or like, oh, you've gained weight. They pretty much will
Put
always...
on weight, man.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. There's the hot one. Yeah.
I tried.
So pretty much that is one of the first, or if not the first, comment you will hear when you come back from college or something, which is, just something that we've definitely talked about a lot.
Yeah, they don't mean any malice by it, really. It's just kind of, they just kind of speak their mind. So it's, things like that is kind of like the topics we want to kind of cover is like, just this little nuances and things like that. There's just like, oh, okay, like maybe to someone who's not used to it, they'll be like, oh, that's kind of brash. It's a little upfront, but like, yeah, it's just kind of getting used to kind of how they communicate and all that. So maybe that's a good transition into like kind of how the structure of the show, like what people can kind of anticipate.
Yeah, before we do that, just saying that just reminded me that I feel like we really should shout out Julie Mango.
Yes.
Who is a
We'll include that in the show notes as well.
TikTok creator. And she basically creates TikTok. She's hilarious, first of all. And she creates TikTok videos kind of lampooning Jamaican people. She's Jamaican herself, so it's not like malicious. It's just funny. It's really just funny.
Yeah, and I think that'll help give you guys a visual of what we're kind of talking about. And if you're not on TikTok, that's okay, because I'm not. She has YouTube clips that you can kind of watch a lot of the stuff. But yeah, I think if you care to watch, to kind of get a better idea, we'll include in the show notes, and you can see some of the hilarious stuff that she shares.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the structure of this podcast going forward. Do you want to explain kind of what that will be like?
Yeah. So this will be an interview style podcast. Obviously, we're introducing ourselves today, but for the majority of the show, we will talk to guests whose parents are from different countries so that we kind of give you guys a wide array of different cultures. And it'll kind of revolve around a series of questions, but we won't ask the same questions each time. We're just really looking to have an authentic and engaging conversation with our guests and just get an idea of like, what was it like growing up, in America or wherever they are, like growing up in a culture outside of your parents? What are some funny things? What are some things maybe you didn't quite enjoy? How has it shaped you as a human being? Things of that nature.
Yeah. And we really want to know how it's shaped them as a person, what they take with them from growing up with their parents and growing up in a way that's probably different from their fully American counterparts. I find that really fascinating, how your childhood shapes you and how you were raised shapes you. So, having immigrant parents really changes your perspective, I think, a lot of times. So, yeah, so we're really fascinated to hear these stories. So we're going to we'll have people with both parents from the same culture like ours or parents from two different cultures, which I think is a different mix as well. We might have a guest or two who grew up in a different country with American parents, for example. And of course, as this podcast goes on, we're hoping to get a really wide array of experiences. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it, and we hope that you all enjoy it.
Yeah, like our said in our trailer, like we really want, what we're missing in this world is connection, I feel like. And I think hopefully by hearing the stories of others, and even if you can't necessarily relate to it, like you can learn something new just about a different culture and kind of how that person experienced the world.
And with that, I think we would like to wrap up our introductory episode here. I think we've pretty much laid out kind of how the podcast will go. Yeah, we're really looking forward, like I said, to hearing these stories. Mm-hmm. So we can't wait to have you guys along for this ride. We are obviously new podcasters, so
we don't know what we're doing.
If we're being honest, we don't quite know what we're doing.
Figuring it out as we go.
But we're
keeping it real
you have
with
to
you.
start somewhere, and we're starting here. And we really hope you'll bear with us, and that these podcasts will be really interesting. I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. This is obviously our first foray into actually being behind the mic now. But I think
we'll have some interesting stories.
Done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the immigrant spirit, you have to just try new things. As our parents always tell us, they came here with nothing and look at them now. So starting from the bottom here, but we will keep going.
Yeah, I think you guys will like the stories. We have a website called cultureinbetween.com. If you are listening to the show and you maybe want to be a guest potentially in the next season or something, like feel free to have a contact form if you guys want to do that, or just learn more about Brianna and I and listen to the shows online as well. So just wanted to plug that. That'll also be in the show notes. But yeah, we're super excited. Like I said, episode 1. We look forward to see the journey. All right, Bri.
All right.
Think we're good.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Peace.